Well, it being 10 o'clock in the morning, I guess it's time to get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is David Barish. I'm the chairman of the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. I would note once again that we're holding this meeting via teleconference with board members and other participants in different locations, consistent with the directives of the governor and the Pennsylvania Secretary of Health pertaining to social distancing due to the COVID pandemic. On March 11th, the Commonwealth's Office of Open Records issued an advisory as to how state and local governments, agencies should conduct their business in compliance with the Sunshine Act, given these unprecedented circumstances. The advisory provides that under these emergency circumstances, the public business of the Commonwealth can be conducted via teleconference or video conference as long as a mechanism was in place to allow for public access. We've done that here today by providing public access to the video and audio of this meeting through the board's website, as well as by publishing the call-in information for this video conference for those who may not have internet access. Additionally, as is always the case, we have a court reporter present who will be transcribing this meeting for the public record. All that being said, I would again ask that everyone who's called in today, please mute your telephone. Also, those who will be participating in this meeting, I would ask that before you speak, please identify yourself for the court reporter. Okay, so getting started, in addition to the 7 regular board members, we have representing our ex officio members, Fred Strathmeyer, representing Russ Redding, Secretary of Agriculture, Jen Langen, representing Stacy Garrity, our new state treasurer, and Kristen Heidingsfelder, representing Dan Hassel, the Secretary of Revenue. Thank you all for joining us this morning. A quorum of the board being present, I would now call the proceedings to order. First order of business, I'd like everyone to please join me in the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sadly,
I'm sorry, Chairman. Before we get started, it seems like there is someone on a call that isn't on mute. Could everyone just double check and make sure?
Yeah, I hear some feedback also. Let's see. Yeah, it's still the case, but we'll proceed for the moment. Sadly, today is Commissioner Dante Santoni's last public session as a member of this board. On a personal note, I want to use the prerogative of the chairmanship to wish Dante all the best as he moves forward into whatever the next aspect of his career is going to be. He has been a calm, thoughtful, considerate, and knowledgeable public servant. He's shown a keen understanding of what it means to perform in the public service and a sense of duty. For 4 years, he's been a very valuable member of this board and has become a very good personal friend of mine. He's also provided great leadership as the chairman of our personnel committee. I wish all of us could be physically together today so we could give Dante a more personalized send-off, dinner, etc. But COVID has disrupted all our lives in so many ways, so this is what we're stuck with, Dante. I want to thank you for your service and your friendship, and I wish you all the best. And please, as this clears up, if we ever get out from under COVID, don't be a stranger. I just would wonder if any other commissioners have any comments at this time. If
Mr.
not,
Chairman, Commissioner Musty, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mark.
I'd also like to wish Dante the best. I did serve with him in the House and have known him to be a person of integrity and always working for whether it's his constituents in the House or working for issues on the board, always doing so in an honorable and not a person that grandstands, but someone that wants to work hard on issues for the right reasons. And I just wanted to convey my best wishes to him as well.
Any other commissioner have anything they want to offer?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Smiler. Having only served on the board for a relatively short period of time, Dante was always somebody I could go to for information or advice. He always had an open door. And as you said, he's always been very thoughtful and considerate of my naivete sometimes. But I've grown very fond of Dante, and I know whatever he does in the future, he'll be successful. But I wish him all the best. Thank you.
Okay, we're not eulogizing you here, Dante. It might look like that. If there are other board members who have something to say, fine, but otherwise.
Mr. Chairman, it's just Sean. Dante, best of luck. Thanks for your friendship.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
we'll keep in touch. God bless you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay,
If,
All right.
if I may, Mr. Chairman, very briefly, I know we have a big agenda today. I do want to thank, first of all, my fellow commissioners. I enjoyed working with each and every one of you, present board and some members that have gone off since I've been on the board. It's been really, truly an honor and a privilege to work with each and every one of you. I know your dedication to the gaming industry is very high, and I appreciate it. Not just working with you and being a colleague, but also your friendships. I think I would call each and every one of you a friend. And I also want to commend the staff. I don't want to mention individual names because I'm afraid I might miss somebody, but I think that the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board, the Pennsylvania gaming industry is in great hands with a great staff. As I said at our meeting yesterday, I've been involved as a member when we first introduced and passed gaming legislation early in 2000s, I think 2004. I had the distinct honor of being the chairman of the House Gaming Oversight Committee when table games were introduced and passed and signed by the Governor Rendell at the time. I served in the industry for a little bit in between that and being appointed to the board. So I've been around the gaming industry for a lot of time. I've seen it grow. And I think it's a terrific addition to the Pennsylvania economy, and it's been an honor and a privilege to be part of the board. So thanks to the commissioners and thanks to the great staff. The gaming industry is in wonderful hands, and thank you all for your kind words. And maybe I'll see you somewhere down the road. Who knows? I'll come back and visit.
I'm sure.
Thank you all.
I'm sure you will. Thank you, Dante. We have a resolution this morning to commemorate your service to the board, which we'll be getting to you. At this time, may I have a motion on the resolution for Commissioner Santoni?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Logan moves that the board adopt resolution PGCB 2021-1 honoring Commissioner Dante Santoni Jr. for his service to the board.
Commissioner Mustio seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Well, you pulled it out by a whisker, Dante. The motion is adopted.
Thanks again. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on. Next, we're going to be presenting service awards to gaming control employees which will be made by our Executive Director, Kevin O'Toole. Kevin?
Good morning, Chairman Barish and members of the board. Today, I'm pleased once again to continue the process of recognizing employees of the Gaming Control Board for their years of service. This is always an enjoyable event to recognize the dedication and the loyalty of employees who have significantly contributed to the success of our agency. And it's apropos this morning because we really appreciate Commissioner Santoni's comments in recognizing the staff. Thank you very much, Dante. So for today, we do have the pleasure of having 5 of our 15-year honorees on the Zoom call this morning. So we will start with Jared Curry. Good morning, Jared. Thank you for participating this morning. Jared was hired on January 21st, 2006 as an investigator for the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement, a position that he continues to excel at today. And Jared is assigned to our Harrisburg office. Jared, congratulations on this milestone of 15 years of employment, and we thank you very much for your service.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you. Our next honoree is William Gavigan. Good morning, Bill. Thank you very much for participating this morning. Bill was also hired on January 21st, 2006 as an investigator for the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement, a position that Bill continues to serve today. He has performed quite a few of some of our biggest background investigations over those 15 years. Bill is assigned to our regional office in Conshohocken. Congratulations, Bill. Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
Our third honoree, Chelsea Wilson. Good morning, Chelsea. Thank you for participating this morning. Chelsea was also hired on January 21st, 2006. That was quite a hiring day for our agency. Chelsea started as an administrative assistant for the Office of Human Resources, and today she maintains the position of Human Resource Specialist. Chelsea is also the agency's SECA coordinator, our state employee combined appeal, which runs every single year and creates an enormous amount of benefit to all the various charitable organizations in the state. Congratulations, Chelsea, on your 15-year anniversary, and we thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
Next, we have Joseph Bott. Good morning, Joe.
Morning.
Thank you for participating as a recipient and an honoree of our program. Joe was hired on January 21st, 2006. The broken record, all four of these honorees were hired on the exact same day. Joe started as a human resource analyst, and he currently holds the position of human resource specialist. I would like to give a special thank you to Joe, because over the past 4 or 5 years, Joe has been the coordinator of these service award presentations. So Joe, thank you for that. We congratulate you on your milestone, and thank you very much for your service.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
And our final honoree today in the Zoom meeting is Heather Warner. Good morning, Heather. Thank you very much for participating this morning. Heather was hired on February 21st, 2006 as a gaming laboratories manager. And today, Heather holds the position of director of the Office of Gaming Laboratory Operations. Heather, your job is very important in managing that gaming lab and ensuring that all of the gaming equipment in Pennsylvania operates in a fair manner and operates in accordance with its specifications. We congratulate you, Heather, on your service award today for 15 years, and thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
So I would also like to recognize 13 additional employees who have reached that 15-year milestone. Michelle Seo is a deputy director in the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement. We have Darcy Leeser and Joe Moraes, both investigator supervisors in the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement. Charles Kelly, David Moore, Mark Palak, and Kathy Philby, all of whom are investigators in the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement. John Walzak and Christopher Costigan, both casino compliance representative supervisors in the Bureau of Casino Compliance. Doreen Bollinger, a licensing analyst in the Bureau of Licensing. Ben Williams, an IT operations specialist in the Bureau of Administration. And Deborah Davis and Kathy Thomas, both administrative assistants in the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement. And finally, for today, we have one 10-year anniversary recipient, and that is Dennis O'Brien, a senior supervisor for the Bureau of Casino Compliance. We congratulate all of the honorees this morning for their service. Thank you very much, Chairman. That finishes this program.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, moving on with the agenda by way of announcements. The board held an executive session yesterday, Tuesday, February 9th, to discuss personnel matters and to conduct quasi-judicial deliberations relating to certain matters that are coming before the board today. This meeting was also conducted via video conference. Next, I'd like to have consideration of a motion to approve the transcript and minutes of the December 16th, 2020 meeting. May I have such a motion?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Smiler moves that the board approve the minutes and transcript of the December 16th, 2020 meeting.
Commissioner Santoni seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion's adopted. Next up, Kevin, Executive Director's report.
Thank you again, Chairman. I do have a brief report. Yesterday, our Office of Communications issued a press release announcing the preliminary figures associated with the sports wagers made by bettors in Pennsylvania on last Sunday's Super Bowl. These figures were very good. 53.6 million in handle on the Super Bowl game, which produced $9.4 million in gross sports wagering revenue. The Super Bowl, as a successful betting event, reflects positively on the continuing growth of online gaming in Pennsylvania, both on sporting events and on casino games. Although the final figures for January 2021 are still pending our receipt of final monthly reports from the industry, the growth in online wagering will continue in a manner that benefits the operators and the casino licensees. The board's press release with those figures for January of 2021 will be issued early next week. So that is my report for this morning. But before I close, Chairman, on behalf of the entire staff here at the board, I would like to personally thank Commissioner Santoni for his support and his contribution to the agency's success over the past 4 years. Dante, thank you very much, and best of luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that.
Thank you, Kevin. Is there any questions or comments for Kevin at this time? If not, next up is Danette Bixler-George, Office of Human Resources. Danette.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, members of the board. The Office of Human Resources has one motion for your consideration today relative to the hiring of 5 individuals. The following individuals have completed the interview process, background investigations, and drug screening, and are recommended for hire by Christopher Schroeder, Bureau Director for Casino Compliance. Terrell Burke has been selected as a technical field representative for Rivers Philadelphia Casino. Fred Sutton has been selected as a casino compliance representative for Rivers Pittsburgh Casino. Joanna Garcia has been selected as a casino compliance representative for Live Philadelphia Casino. Jared Schaefer has been selected as a casino compliance representative for Wind Creek Casino. And finally, Brittany Joniak has been selected as a casino compliance representative for Rivers Philadelphia Casino. Unless you have any questions, I would ask that the board consider a motion to approve these hiring actions as indicated.
Any questions or comments for Danette at this moment? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Santoni moves that the board approve the applicants for hire as proposed by the Human Resources Director.
Mr. Reitzel seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Thank you.
Next up, our Chief Counsel, Doug Sherman. Doug?
Yes. Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Our first agenda item relates to a final form rulemaking, which Assistant Chief Counsel Chad Zimmerman is here to present.
Morning, Chairman and members of the board. Chad Zimmerman from the Office of Chief Counsel. Before you today is final form rulemaking number 125-225, which is amendments to the board's self-exclusion procedures. This final form rulemaking modernizes and brings a more efficient system to the self-exclusion process in the Commonwealth. There are three major changes to the self-exclusion process that I will explain for you now. The first change is a rebranding of the self-exclusion list to the casino self-exclusion list. This delineates that this specific list will apply only to brick and mortar licensed facilities, sports books at brick and mortar licensed facilities, and sports books at non-primary locations, also known as off-track betting locations. There will be additional self-exclusion lists for the other forms of gaming in the Commonwealth. The second change is the creation of an online portal to allow individuals to complete the self-exclusion process and removal from the self-exclusion list process completely and entirely online without the necessity of traveling to a casino or to a board office. This will allow individuals who don't live close to a board office or a casino the ability to do so without the necessity of traveling. The last major change is the creation of a procedure to allow an individual who selects lifetime casino self-exclusion or previously selected lifetime self-exclusion under the old rules to remove their name, to seek removal from the list after a 10-year period has elapsed. The individual bears the burden of proving that they have sought treatment or at least have received an evaluation from a qualified evaluator. And they also must demonstrate that removal from the list will not be detrimental to their mental or physical health or well-being and will not in any way be adverse to gaming interests in the Commonwealth. If you have any further questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you, Chad. Any questions for Chad at this point? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Chairman, Commissioner Reitzel moves that the board adopt the final form rulemaking number 125-225 regarding modifications to the casino self-exclusion list procedures as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Next before the board for consideration are a motion and two petitions. These matters will be decided based upon the documentary record by agreement of the parties. In each of the matters, the board has, in advance of this meeting, been provided with all documents filed of record. The first matter before the board today is a motion by interactive gaming manufacturer GAN UK Limited, seeking an extension of time to provide copies of assignment and assumption agreements to board staff. By way of background, in December of 2020, the board granted GAN UK Limited's request to assign its Pennsylvania gaming contracts to its subsidiary company, GAN Nevada Incorporated, with the condition that GAN UK provide to the Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement and the Office of Enforcement Counsel a copy of all assignment and assumption agreements between the Nevada company and the United Kingdom company with any Pennsylvania gaming entities within 30 days, which gave the petitioners until January 15th to comply. On January 11th, GAN filed a request for an additional 30 days to provide the requested agreements, stating that they were working with companies to complete the agreements. Subsequently, GAN requested that the deadline be extended to March 15th, 2021, which would be a 60 days from the original deadline, averring that the company is working on finalizing one final assignment agreement. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to this request, and it's now ready for the board's consideration.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board grant the motion as amended and extend the deadline for compliance to March 15th, 2021.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Next before the board is Pit Stop Travel Plaza's petition for approval of a change of control. Pit Stop Travel Plaza is the holder of a video gaming terminal establishment license. They are requesting that the board approve the transfer of ownership of their establishment to PJ Travel Plaza, LLC. In April 2019, the board issued an establishment license to Pit Stop Travel Plaza, authorizing them to allow a terminal operator licensee to place and operate video gaming terminals on the premises of the Clinton County truck stop establishment. The owners of Pit Stop Travel Plaza now seek to sell the business to PJ Travel Plaza LLC. PJ Travel Plaza has filed the appropriate applications with the board's Bureau of Licensing, and they've been issued a conditional establishment license on October of 2020. Additionally, PJ Travel has entered into a contract with Commonwealth Gaming, the same terminal operator that Pit Stop had contracted. The change of control would permit PJ Travel to assume the operations of the truck stop establishment pursuant to a lease, as Pit Stop principals will continue to be the holders of the real estate. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the requested relief, subject to conditions outlined in their answer, including that PJ Travel will only be granted full licensure and the ability to have video gaming at the establishment upon completion of the background investigation and the board finding it suitable. This matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Are there any questions or comments from the board on this matter? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Kernodle move that the board grants Pit Stop Travel Plaza petition for change in control as described by the Office of Chief Counsel and with the condition to be outlined in board order. I further move that the request for confidentiality be granted.
Commissioner Smiler seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The next matter before the board is Tajuddin McGough's request to lift the suspension of his gaming employee occupation permit. Mr. McGough is on the phone call today and would like to briefly address the board. However, before he does that, I'd like to give you a brief summary of the matter. Mr. McGough is a board licensed gaming employee and was employed as a table game dealer at Parks Casino. In October 2019, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for an emergency order of suspension of Mr. McGough's gaming employee occupation permit after they received notice that he had been charged with a misdemeanor gaming offense stemming from an incident at a Delaware casino where he was a patron. As a result of the charges, an emergency order suspending Mr. McGough's permit was signed by the board's executive director on October 17th, 2019. Thereafter, a hearing was held at the board's Office of Hearings and Appeals, and on December 18th, 2019, the board issued an order directing that the suspension remain in effect. On December 7th, 2020, Mr. McGough filed a petition to lift the suspension of his gaming employee occupation permit, indicating that he had requested a jury trial on the charges filed against him in Delaware, but that due to COVID-19, the Delaware courts have suspended all jury trials, and as a result, he has not been able to resolve his criminal matter, and he's been told that he may not receive a court date until the year 2022. It is Mr. McGough's position that the criminal charges, which stem from his removing his wager from a gaming table after the outcome was known, is a misunderstanding. OEC filed an answer objecting to Mr. McGough's request as his criminal charges are still pending. The Office of Hearings and Appeals held a pre-hearing conference with both Mr. McGough and OEC, wherein Mr. McGough agreed that the facts leading to the suspension of his gaming permit remain the same. As a result, this matter is now ready for the board's consideration. As indicated, Mr. McGough is on the line and would like to briefly address the board.
Should we swear him in?
Yes.
Doug? The court reporter do that. Mr. McGough, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, can we swear him in, please?
Sure. Mr. McGough, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. McGough, if you have some comments, please proceed.
Okay, since my last meeting with the OEC, defects were still remaining, but since then, I have been in contact with the investigating officer, and he came to a conclusion that he would dismiss all charges. He's been in contact with the DA for the Newcastle County in Delaware. I'm not sure. He said he's not sure how long it would take for the motion to be granted, but the charges will be dropped. All charges will be dropped. So I'm asking today, may I please have the suspension lifted because the charges are being dismissed.
Okay, thank you. Doug, I don't know where that leaves us. I think the motion is still pertinent.
Yes, I would agree. It would still be pertinent.
Okay. Okay, we're good. All right then. Is there a motion on this matter relating to Mr. McGuff?
There is, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Smiler, based upon the unique circumstances the petitioner finds himself in due to the COVID pandemic and delays in exercising his due process rights in Delaware, moves that the petition be granted and that the emergency suspension of Mr. McGuff's permit be lifted. In making this motion, I note that should the petitioner be convicted of a gambling offense, he may be the subject of a future permit revocation proceeding brought by enforcement counsel, and the board would be statutorily obligated to revoke his permit at that time.
Commissioner Santoni seconds.
All in favor?
Mr. Chairman, before we have a vote,
Yes.
I would suggest that given the new information, that Mr. McGuff also be required to provide any order from the court consistent with what his representations have been as soon as he receives that.
Okay, do we have to add that to the order, or is that something?
We will make sure that it's in the order issued by the board.
As the mover of this motion, I would concur with that amendment.
Okay.
And I would second.
Okay, fine. All in favor of that motion as orally modified?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted. Thank you very much for your participation, Mr. McGuff, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on.
Yes, next we have withdrawals and surrenders, as well as reports and recommendations presented by Deputy Chief Counsel Steve Cook.
Morning. The next matter before the board today pertains to several unopposed petitions to withdraw the applications or surrender the credentials of the following individuals or businesses: Barrett Lindwall, Rolf Lundstrom, Crib Gawk Investment Limited, Novabis AB, Provabis Holding AB, Provabis Invest AB, Knutson Holdings AB, OTG Holdings LLC, OTG Management Inc., OTG Management LLC, OTG Experience LLC, Christopher John Redd, Eric J. Blatstein, Mark Mitchell Rayfield, Scott David Eidelberg, Thomas John Iacopelli, Jack Allen Markle, Paul Meister, Jeremy Clemens, Lee Michael Feldman, Aviad Cobrine, and Woodside Investments LP. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has indicated they have no objection to any of these petitions, and as a result, if the board grants same, it would be doing so without prejudice to each of these parties.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Santoni moves that the board issue orders to approve the withdrawals and surrenders as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Reitzel, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Next before the board for consideration today are 5 reports and recommendations received from the Office of Hearings and Appeals. These reports and recommendations, along with the complete evidentiary record in each hearing, have been provided to the board in advance of this meeting. And additionally, each person that is subject to these reports and recommendations has been advised that the board would be taking their matter up today and that they had the opportunity to briefly address the board. The first report and recommendation pertains to Jeremy Spirer. I believe Mr. Spirer's attorney, Kate Lovelace, is on the phone and would like to address the board. Before we do that, however, I'll provide a brief summary of this case. Mr. Spire holds a non-gaming employer registration and had worked at the Rivers Casino in Pittsburgh. On October 15th, 2020, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for an emergency suspension of Mr. Spire's non-gaming employer registration after receiving notice that he had been charged with several felonies following an incident where Mr. Spire solicited sex from an undercover police officer posing as a 15-year-old girl. As a result of these charges, the board's executive director issued an emergency order suspending Mr. Spire's non-gaming employer registration as requested by Enforcement Counsel. A hearing in this matter was held on November 24th, 2020. Mr. Spire appeared at that hearing with counsel via telephone, I believe. Mr. Spire did not testify, and his counsel acknowledged that the charges remain pending. The Office of Enforcement Counsel presented testimony and documentary evidence regarding the pending criminal charges, and based upon the evidence received, a report and recommendation was issued in this matter recommending that Mr. Spire's suspension remain in effect until at least disposition of the criminal charges. As I indicated, Attorney Lovelace is on the phone, and I believe she would like to briefly address the board.
Fine.
Thank you. Hi,
Ms.
thank
Lovelace?
you, Steve. This is Kate Lovelace, yeah, attorney for Mr. Spire. So just a quick update. Jeremy has a number of intellectual and some physical disabilities, and I believe he's wanted at the casino, but we've scheduled an evaluation for competency because of his IQ and some other intellectual disability diagnoses that he's received. And that evaluation is being held at the county court on the 23rd of this month. So I was hoping that the board might be willing to move this to the March date, pending the outcome of that evaluation, because the district attorney is inclined to withdraw the charges if he's not competent, and that could happen before March 17th. So I think that's your next meeting date. I was hoping that that was a request that I could make to this board today.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any questions for the attorney, Ms. Lovelace, or any comments on this matter at this time?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Smiler. Ms. Lovelace, why had you not made this request about a chief counsel prior to today?
I didn't know I could. I was just following I'm a criminal defense attorney, so I'm doing this as like a courtesy out of the other consequences that have come. But I have never dealt with the Gaming Commission Board, so I thought that this was not movable. I thought I just had to do it when you said to do it.
Mr. Chairman,
my intention was that.
Who's speaking?
Go ahead.
It's Steve,
This is still
Mr. Chairman.
Kate Lovelace.
Okay, 1 second,
If I
please.
can, Ms. Lovelace, this is Steve Cook. I'll just provide a little bit of not explanation, but if we move the matter to March, there's really no harm because the suspension is in effect now and will remain in effect. So it's not like we're voting to suspend. It's
Okay, that's useful to consider. Any comments from any other board members, and then I'll make a comment.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, please, Denise. Go ahead.
Based upon Steve Cook's information, I would, if Ms. Lovelace is accurate in her timing as far as the evaluation, I'd be inclined to not oppose a brief continuance of this matter.
Okay, let me just ask a question here. Ms. Lovelace, do you have a particular date in March?
His evaluation is on February 23rd, and I would guess it'll take them about 2 weeks to get some kind of result to the district attorney in writing. But honestly, I will like hustle to get whatever I can get to you before whatever next hearing date we have. I'm at their mercy, of course.
No, I understand that. I'm just trying to understand logistics, and I don't criticize you at all. If you've never appeared before us before, to know how we process is not surprising. You wouldn't know that. Hopefully you won't be in front of us again, but to have done this in advance would have been helpful. I would
Chairman.
suggest, yes, who's
It's
speaking?
Sean. Ms. Lovelace,
Please.
did you provide any of the documents that indicate that the client, Jeremy, has disabilities? Did you provide those?
I don't know if I don't have contact. I mean, I'm getting emails from Lindsay Wanick. Like until Mr. Cook called me just to make sure I was going to be on the call this morning, I've never had any conversations with anyone there about anything really. So I don't know that I've provided that, but I mean, I have psychological reports.
Yeah, but we don't have
would
it today. Did Jeremy provide them during his hearing with the Office of Hearings and Appeals?
I doubt that he did that without me doing it for him, but I mean, I could email them to you now. I'm not 100% comfortable like just sending his psychological reports out
I'm not
without
asking
talking
you
to
to.
him.
I'm asking you if you provided them to the board, and that was a no. And I'm asking you if Jeremy provided them at his hearing in front of Hearings and Appeals. And you don't know, or you do know, and it's no.
Well, Jeremy's on the phone. Jeremy, can you answer that?
I don't think I did. I mean, I don't have any issues. Like, I don't think I did. I mean, I didn't really have any other hearings except the one that we had before this. So I'm not sure if what you guys have. I mean, we've been getting information from Lindsay Ward about my suspension license. So that, I mean, that's the only thing that I know that we'll be getting emails from. So I mean, they didn't really ask for me to like send anything to them.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, I have never received the reports before the hearing. It's usually like at the last hearing, someone said, do you have that? And I was like, no. And the same thing with this year. I don't have any reports from you guys either. And I apologize. This is all new to me. And I'm not trying to get into the gaming license attorney field.
And Lindsay just like sent me an email to me, like to us saying that, you know, that they were having another hearing today about my suspended license, and that was it. Like, she didn't like ask for like any documents or anything.
Okay.
I don't think we would have known to do that.
Okay, let me see if I can wrap this thing up for the moment.
Can I just, Mr. Chairman, can I ask Steve one word? This is Sean. Steve, do we know if any of those?
I don't believe there's any records of the nature you're talking about in the record now.
Was Jeremy represented by counsel at the hearing at Hearings and Appeals?
I believe Ms. Lovelace was on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry that maybe I didn't ask my question correctly. Ms. Lovelace, at the hearing, at Hearings and Appeals, you did not provide any documentation that illustrates Jeremy's disabilities.
I have not. I'm going to say no because nobody's ever asked me for it, and I've never spoken to an attorney before today.
I can see Dustin Miller shaking his head, and I presume he's telling us no data was presented. Is that fair, Dustin?
Okay.
That's correct, Chairman.
I'm just saying, I'll stay in my lane, but it would have probably been helpful if you had that information, you had those reports at his initial hearing in front of Hearings and Appeals, that you would have presented it. Again, I'll stay in my lane as a non-lawyer.
I mean, we talked about it and it came up. And the person from the Rivers Casino confirmed. Sorry.
Okay. Let me try to wrap this up. If I wish to table this motion for now, does that require a vote of the board, or can I just do that as the chairman?
You can just table it yourself as chairman.
Okay. I would say, given the fact that Steve has pointed out that he's already been suspended and all we're doing is continuing his suspension until we can unravel this, I would suggest that I'm going to table this for now, and we'll take this up hopefully in March. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like the record to reflect I'm against the tabling.
Okay, fine.
Mr. Chairman, I also would just like to make sure Ms. Lovelace knows now that there is a process that she does need to provide documentation and evidence of her client's disability prior to the next board meeting.
Okay, so we're going to table this now because it doesn't appear to create any prejudice either for him or for us. And we'll take this up in March with whatever data we're given by then. Okay, let's move on then.
Jeremy, you can hang up.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the next matter is Joshua Selter's report and recommendation. On January 17th, 2019, Mr. Selter submitted a gaming employee occupation permit application seeking work as an IT systems administrator at Presque Isle Downs and Casino. On January 9th, 2020, after attempting to work with Mr. Selter for over a year, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed and sent Mr. Selter a notice of recommendation of denial of his application based upon his failure to file a 2017 federal tax return. Mr. Selter requested a hearing, which was held on March 10th, 2020. OEC attended the hearing and presented both testimony and documentary evidence outlining Mr. Selter's continued noncompliance in providing the requested tax information. Mr. Selter appeared and testified on his own behalf. He stated that during the time he would have been preparing his 2017 tax return, he was having difficulty getting mortgage documents needed to complete his return. He further testified that a week before the hearing, he had found the documents and would be filing his return within the week. Following the hearing, an order was issued giving Mr. Selter until May 29th, 2020 to provide proof that his 2017 tax return had been filed. Subsequently, due to COVID-19, that date was extended until August 24th, 2020. Thereafter, OHA Hearings and Appeals held a teleconference hearing on September 22nd, 2020, with both parties appearing. Mr. Selter still did not file his tax return at that point. An agreement was reached between the parties to give him until November 17th, 2020 to show that he had filed by that point in time both his 2017 and 2018 tax returns. Mr. Selter failed to comply with that deadline. As a result, the report and recommendation issued recommends that his application be denied.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just so the technicians know, my Zoom froze, so I'm now calling in. This is Commissioner Mustio. Commissioner Mustio moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals regarding the denial of Joshua Selter's gaming employee occupation permit application as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Next before the board is the report and recommendation pertaining to Dung Dang Nguyen. By way of background, on June 14th, 2015, while playing Asian poker at Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack, Mr. Nguyen violated the rules of the game by resetting two of his hands after the dealer had exposed his hands, which resulted in Mr. Nguyen winning $500 to which he was not entitled. After being confronted, Mr. Nguyen returned the $500 to Harrah's. He was permanently evicted from Harrah's and criminally charged, ultimately pleading guilty to disorderly conduct. Subsequently, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Mr. Nguyen on the exclusion list. The hearing in this matter was held, and the parties thereafter entered a consent agreement, which the board adopted in August of 2016. The consent agreement placed Mr. Nguyen on the exclusion list and prohibited him from requesting early removal from the list for a period of 4 years. It also stated that after 5 years had elapsed from this placement on the list, regardless of whether Mr. Nguyen had requested early removal, OEC would not object to the request for removals, provided he had no gambling offenses or had violated the exclusion order. On September 17th, 2020, 4 years and 1 month after his placement on the list pursuant to the consent agreement, Mr. Nguyen filed his request for early removal. OEC filed an answer objecting to the request, and a hearing was held on December 9th, 2020. Mr. Nguyen appeared with his counsel and presented testimony and documentary evidence. He testified that he is the father of a 6-year-old girl who resides in a 24-hour skilled nursing facility, and that his placement on the list has inhibited his ability to obtain employment, which he needs to secure resources to help in the care for his daughter. He provided a letter from the nursing facility explaining his daughter's medical issues, and also provided documentation showing that his criminal record for these offenses have been expunged. OEC did not provide testimony or exhibits at the hearing. They did, however, state that they objected to Mr. Nguyen's request only because the 5 years had not yet elapsed from Mr. Nguyen's placement on the list, and his current circumstances did not meet the regulatory test for early removal from the list, which requires a showing of extraordinary facts and circumstances. A report and recommendation was issued recommending that Mr. Nguyen's petition be denied, with the hearing officer also finding that extraordinary facts and circumstances were not shown, and that is the recommendation before the board.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board on this matter? Hearing none. May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Logan moves that the board reject the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals regarding Dong Dang Nguyen's petition for removal from the PGCB involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Mr. Nguyen be removed from the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Commissioner Knodel seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The report and recommendation pertaining to Ron Chen is next before the board today. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Mr. Chen on the exclusion list after notification that he conspired with a dealer at Sands Bethworks Casino, now Wind Creek, to cheat while playing Baccarat. The hearing in this matter was held on November 5th, 2020. Mr. Chen appeared pro se and testified on his own behalf. OEC appeared and presented testimony, documentary evidence, and surveillance video in support of their request to put Mr. Chen on the exclusion list. The evidence presented by OEC showed that in the overnight hours of November 24th and 25th of 2018, during 4 separate games of Baccarat, Mr. Chen conspired with a dealer who would violate casino protocol, look at the face of cards, and then not shuffle them appropriately. After memorizing the order of the cards while shuffling, the dealer, whose license has since been revoked, would provide that information to Mr. Chen, allowing him to place large bets when he knew certain cards would be drawn. The scheme resulted in Mr. Chen placing 11 $15,200 bets, winning 10 of those hands and resulting in $128,000, in excess of $128,000 in winnings. OEC further presented evidence that showed that between August 17th, 2018 and November 25th, 2018, Mr. Chen's visited Sands Bethworks Casino 13 times and won over $850,000, always during shifts worked by the conspiring dealer. Additionally, on one occasion in November of 2016, Mr. Chen won $385,000 playing table games at Valley Forge Casino Resort while the conspiring dealer was an employee there. Mr. Chen testified at the hearing that he did nothing wrong, that he did not win every time he gamed, and that OEC was only presenting evidence of his times of good fortune and rested his case on that information. Based upon all of the evidence received, the hearing officer recommends that Mr. Chen be placed on the board's involuntary exclusion list as a cheat.
Very good. Any questions or comments from the board on this matter? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Knodel move that the board adopts the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearing and Appeals regarding the replacement of Ron Chen on the PGCB involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Mr. Chen be placed on the board involuntary exclusion list.
Commissioner Smiler seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The final report and recommendation before the board today pertains to Joseph Richelli. On June 30th, 2020, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Mr. Richelli on the board's involuntary exclusion list, alleging that he participated in a scheme with several employees of the Meadows Racetrack and Casino, in which the casino employees were hiding previously used match play coupons and then providing them to Mr. Riccelli to reuse. Match play coupons are a marketing tool for casinos, allowing a patron to make a larger wager without risking their own funds. Once a match play coupon is utilized, casino staff are typically required to collect and void the coupons. A video hearing in this matter was held on October 7th, 2020. OEC appeared presenting testimony, documentary, and surveillance video evidence. The evidence presented by OEC showed that on 5 different dates while Mr. Riccelli was playing table games, he was repeatedly handed recycled match play coupons, which were shown to have been surreptitiously hidden by 4 different Meadows Casino employees, all of whom have now had their licenses revoked. Mr. Riccelli appeared at the hearing. He testified on his own behalf and presented testimony of another witness who was another patron of the Meadows, who testified that he had no knowledge of any rules associated with match play coupons, nor were there any rules posted on the property or at the property that he had seen. Mr. Riccelli ultimately testified that he didn't do anything wrong, that he didn't know that the coupons couldn't be given to him or that they were previously used, and that basically that if someone handed him a coupon, he was going to use it regardless. After the hearing, all of the evidence in this matter, the report and recommendation was issued, recommending that Mr. Riccelli be placed on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Riccelli filed exceptions to the report and recommendation, arguing he accepted the coupons which were given to him voluntarily, and he also, in those exceptions, restated his objections to the evidence presented and stated that he felt that the hearing officer had predetermined his guilt prior to the hearing. He further argued that he was deprived of certain due process rights. This report and recommendation is now before the board and ready for consideration. The recommendation of the hearing officer, as I indicated, is that Mr. Riccelli be placed on the exclusion list.
Thank you, Steve. Are there any questions or comments from the board on this matter? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Smiler moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals in result, and that Mr. Riccelli be placed on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Commissioner Santoni seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion's adopted. Okay. Is that the end, Steve?
Yeah, that concludes our matters.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Bureau of Licensing, Director Sue Hensel. Hi, Susan.
Chairman Barish and members of the board. Before the board today will be license consideration of an interactive gaming and sports wagering operator, an interactive gaming manufacturer, a sports wagering manufacturer, a video gaming terminal establishment, and a conditional video gaming terminal operator. In addition, there will be 423 principals and key gaming and non-gaming employee applicants. Finally, there will be consideration of 9 gaming service provider applicants. First, for your consideration, our interactive gaming and sports wagering operator licenses for Betfair Interactive US LLC. Betfair Interactive US LLC provides interactive and sports wagering technologies and services to interactive and sports wagering certificate holders. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement has completed its investigation, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with background investigation and suitability reports. I have provided you with draft orders and ask that the board consider the orders to approve the licenses, beginning first with the interactive gaming operator license.
Comments from Enforcement Council?
Chairman Barish, Dustin Miller on behalf of the Office of Enforcement Council. The Office of Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Santoni moves that the board grant the interactive gaming operator license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Reitzel seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
And next for your consideration is the sports wagering operator license.
The Office of Enforcement Council has no objection.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Reitzel moves that the board grant a sports wagering operator license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next for your consideration is the approval of an interactive gaming manufacturer license for NSUS Group, Inc. NSUS Group, Inc. provides software and technology for interactive gaming activities. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement has completed its investigation, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that the board consider the order to approve an interactive gaming manufacturer license for NSUS Group, Inc.
There's something wrong with your audio, Dustin. I'm not sure. You may have to get closer. I heard you, but any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Mustigo moves that the board grant the interactive gaming manufacturer license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
In addition, there is a sports wagering manufacturer license for GAN Nevada, Inc. GAN Nevada, Inc. provides sports wagering technologies and services to sports wagering operators. Under the Gaming Act, the board may use an abbreviated process to consider the application of an already licensed manufacturer. GAN Nevada, Inc. is currently licensed as an interactive gaming manufacturer. The Bureau of Licensing, Office of Enforcement Counsel, and Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement have reviewed the application for a sports wagering manufacturer license and the status of GAN Nevada, Inc. as a licensee, and I've provided you with the results of those reviews. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that you consider the order to approve a sports wagering manufacturer license for GAN Nevada, Inc.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Logan moves that the board grant the sports wagering manufacturer license that's described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Knodel seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Next is a VGT establishment license for TA Operating LLC, doing business as Travel Centers of America, number 12. VGT establishments are truck stops seeking to place VGTs in their businesses. TA Operating LLC was previously conditionally licensed. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement has now completed its investigation, including an evaluation that the applicant meets the VGT establishment eligibility criteria in the Gaming Act. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. Once fully licensed, an establishment can continue forward toward completing the steps necessary to commence VGT gaming. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that you consider the order to license TA Operating LLC, doing business as Travel Centers of America, number 12, which is located at 7848 Lingelstown Road in Harrisburg.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Thank you, Dustin. Dustin, we're going to probably have to do something about your audio. It's not good. If Richard's on the line, maybe he can communicate with you, because when you have to start making presentations in a little while, we may have some difficulty.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm working on it right now.
Okay, thank you. Let's continue then. Are there any questions or comments from the board on this? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Knodel moves that the board grants the video game terminal establishment license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Smiler seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The next matter for your consideration is a conditional video gaming terminal operator license for Legacy Gaming LLC. Legacy Gaming LLC is a Pennsylvania-based company. A VGT operator owns, services, or maintains VGTs for placement and operation at truck stop establishments. Under the Gaming Act, the board may issue a conditional VGT operator license provided certain criteria are met, including that the applicant has submitted a completed application, has never been convicted of a felony or gambling law violation, is current on state taxes, and has not had a similar license denied or revoked. A preliminary review of this applicant indicates it meets these criteria. I ask that the board consider a motion to approve the conditional VGT operator license of Legacy Gaming LLC. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Has no objection.
Okay, I gather that was a no comment from you, Justin. Dustin, we're having some problems. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Smiler moves that the board grant the conditional video gaming terminal operator license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Santoni seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
In addition, there are principal and key employee licenses for your consideration. Prior to this meeting, the Bureau of Licensing provided you with a proposed order for 11 principals and 12 key employees. I ask that the board consider the order approving these licenses.
Comments from Enforcement Council?
Office of Enforcement Council has no objection.
That's better. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Santoni moves that the board grant the principal and key employee licenses as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Reitzel seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
There are also temporary licenses for your consideration. Prior to this meeting, the Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order regarding the issuance of temporary licenses for 1 principal and 11 key employees. I ask that the board consider the order approving these licenses.
Enforcement Council?
Office of Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Reitzel moves that the board grant the temporary principal and key employee credentials as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Next are gaming permits and non-gaming registrations. Prior to this meeting, the Bureau of Licensing provided you with a list of 323 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted temporary or full occupation permits, and 73 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted registrations under the authority delegated to the Bureau of Licensing. I ask that the board consider a motion approving the order.
The Office of Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board approve the applications for gaming employee occupation permits and non-gaming employee registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion's adopted.
There is also a recommendation of denial for 2 gaming employee applicants. The applicants were notified that they were being recommended for denial and failed to request hearings within the specified timeframes. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with orders addressing each of the applicants who the Office of Enforcement Council has recommended for denial. I ask that the board consider the orders approving the denials.
Office of Enforcement Council continues to request denial in each instance.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Santoni moves that the board deny the gaming employee occupation permit applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Reitzel seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The next matters for your consideration are withdrawal requests. In each case, the permit is no longer required. For today's meeting, I have provided the board with 13 gaming employee applicants for withdrawal. I ask that the board consider the orders approving these withdrawals.
The Office of Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Logan moves that the board grant the withdrawal of gaming and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Thank
Commissioner
you.
Knoll seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Next, we have an order to certify the following gaming service provider applicants: Archetype Signmakers, Inc., Oil Construction, Inc., CAMS LLC, Madison Construction Company doing business as Madison Concrete Construction, Nova Industries LLC doing business as Nova Sign Group, and Pride Enterprises, Inc. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that the board consider the order certifying these gaming service provider applicants.
The Office of Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Kanono will move that the board approve the gaming service provider certification as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Smiler seconds.
Thank you.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Finally, for your consideration, our gaming service provider registrations. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order and an attached list of 3 registered gaming service provider applicants. I ask that the board consider the order registering these gaming service providers.
OEC has no objection.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please? Is there a motion? Commissioner Smiler? You're on mute.
Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Commissioner Smiler moves that the board approve the gaming service provider registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Santoni seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion's adopted.
That concludes the matters of the Bureau of Licensing.
All right. Thank you, Susan. Next up, we're going to hear from Deputy Chief Enforcement Counsel Dustin Miller. I'm not sure how your sound is doing, Dustin. Let's get started and see how it goes.
Okay, thank you, Chairman.
That's much better. Did you switch to another room or something?
Yeah. Doug Harbach is helping me out.
Good. Very good. Let's proceed.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel will present 23 matters today for the board's consideration, in which we will request the approval of 1 revocation, 6 suspensions, and 16 involuntary exclusions. The next 7 matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed complaints seeking the revocation or suspension of gaming employee occupation permits and non-gaming employee registrations issued by the board. The complaints have been filed with the board's Office of Hearings and Appeals and properly served upon the individual named in each complaint. The individual named in each complaint failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon the respondent. Therefore, the facts in each complaint are deemed admitted, all filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. I will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action in each matter.
Thank you.
The next matter is a request to suspend the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Ian Hancock. Mr. Hancock is a former cage cashier at Valley Forge Casino Resort. The Bureau of Casino Compliance was notified that Mr. Hancock was arrested and criminally charged by the Upper Providence Township Police Department in Delaware County. On the date of the incident, the police were dispatched to a residence for a domestic disturbance where Mr. Hancock was found inside the residence. Mr. Hancock threatened the police from inside the residence. Ultimately, Mr. Hancock surrendered peacefully and no one was injured. However, upon execution of a warrant at the residence, numerous firearms, knives, and a large quantity of explosive devices were found inside the residence. Mr. Hancock was criminally charged with terroristic threats, recklessly endangering another person, simple assault, and possession of an instrument of crime. Mr. Hancock had previously resigned from his position at Valley Forge and is not currently employed at any Pennsylvania casino facility. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Ian Hancock be suspended.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Santoni moves that the board approve the suspension of Ian Hancock's gaming employee occupation permit as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Reitzel, second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to DeJuan Luster. Mr. Luster had been employed as a security officer at Rivers Pittsburgh Casino. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement was notified that Mr. Luster was arrested and charged with felony drug charges. These charges are currently pending. Mr. Luster is not currently employed in the Pennsylvania gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board suspend the gaming employee occupation permit issued to DeJuan Luster.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Reitzel moves that the board approve the suspension of Dewan Lester's gaming employee occupation permit as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Mustillo seconds.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Shaylin Nixon Mosey. While working as a table games dealer at Rivers, Philadelphia, Mr. Nixon Mosey actively assisted players by revealing information about the hole card and the next cards coming from the dealer's shoe. He also made decisions for the players and moved losing wagers from bonus bets to tips on the players' base wagers. Mr. Nixon Mosey was terminated from his employment for this incident. Mr. Nixon Mosey is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. This time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Shaylin Nixon Mosey.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Mustillo moves that the board approve the revocation of Shaylin Nixon Mosey's gaming employee occupation permit as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Rashid Oberton. Mr. Oberton had been employed as a bar porter at Valley Forge Casino Resort. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement received notification that Mr. Oberton was charged with felony burglary, criminal trespass, conspiracy, and also misdemeanor theft and receiving stolen property by the Philadelphia Police Department. These charges are currently pending. Mr. Oberton is not currently employed in the Pennsylvania gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board to suspend the non-gaming employee registration issued to Rashid Oberton.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Logan moves that the board approve the suspension of Rashid Oberton's non-gaming employee registration as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Knodel seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Keith Smith. Mr. Smith had been employed as a security officer at Parks Casino. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement was notified that Mr. Smith was charged with felony drug and conspiracy charges by the Philadelphia Police Department. These charges are currently pending. Mr. Smith is not currently employed in the Pennsylvania gaming industry. This time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board suspend the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Keith Smith.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Knodel moved that the board approve the suspension of Keith Smith gaming employee occupation permit as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Smiler seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Gabafalai Suba. Mr. Suba had been hired as an EBS attendant at Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement was notified that Mr. Suba was charged with multiple felonies, including rape and sexual assault in Delaware County. Further, Mr. Suba was charged with misdemeanor receiving stolen property and unauthorized use of a motor vehicle in a separate matter in Montgomery County. These charges are currently pending. Mr. Suba is not currently employed in the Pennsylvania gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board suspend the non-gaming employee registration issued to Gabafalai Suba.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Smiler moves that the board approve the suspension of Gabafala Suba's non-gaming employee registration as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Santoni seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Keon Tate. Mr. Tate had been employed as a security officer at Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement was notified that Mr. Tate was charged with felony drug, weapons, and receiving stolen property charges in Delaware County. Further, Mr. Tate was charged with a felony drug offense in a separate matter by the Philadelphia Police Department. These charges are currently pending. Mr. Tate is not currently employed in the Pennsylvania gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board suspend the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Keon Tate.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Santoni moves that the board approve the suspension of Keon Tate's gaming employee occupation permit as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Wrightsville, second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted.
The remaining matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed petitions seeking the involuntary exclusion of individuals whose presence in a licensed gaming facility are inimical to the interest of the Commonwealth and/or licensed gaming therein. In each instance, the petition for exclusion has been filed with the board's Office of Hearings and Appeals and properly served upon the individual named in the petition. The individual named in each petition failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for judgment upon default in each instance and properly served the same upon each individual. Therefore, all facts in each petition are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the board and the matters are presently ripe for board consideration. In each instance, if the board orders the proposed exclusion, each individual's photo, personal identifiers, and a summary of the inimical conduct will be placed on the board's public website. Once again, I will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action in each matter. The next matter on the agenda is a request to place Michael Harper on the involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Harper came to Rivers Philadelphia Casino with 2 children, ages 4 and 2. Mr. Harper left the children unattended in a vehicle and proceeded to the casino where he placed a sports wager. The 2 children were unsupervised for approximately 30 minutes. Mr. Harper was not criminally charged for his actions. However, he was permanently evicted from the property. The matter is now before the board to consider the placement of Michael Harper on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Miller at this time from anybody about this matter?
Mr. Chairman, this is Sean. I do a few. It's not so much about Mr. Harper, but the process that the process and/or timeline. So it's my understanding that another patron, I believe in the garage, saw Mr. Harper possibly exiting the car and the 2-year-old and the 4-year-old in the car.
That's correct, Commissioner Logan. I believe that was around 11:17 a.m. that Mr. Harper left the vehicle. He encountered another patron shortly after he left his vehicle. And according to the report we got, that the patron reported to security that he had warned Mr. Harper not to leave the children unattended in the vehicle.
Okay, so the patron, how was that done? Did the patron go back in and talk to somebody? Call?
Yes, the information we do not have is when the patron contacted security. The first report that we have regarding when security contacted our Bureau of Casino Compliance and when security contacted surveillance was at 11:40. So that's 23 minutes after Mr. Harper left his vehicle. I don't know what the patron, the third-party patron, I don't know if he was leaving the casino or was going into the casino, but casino security did not contact surveillance until 11:40 a.m.
So at least 23 minutes later.
Right.
And just help me. I'm sure the patron indicated to someone at the casino that the kids were young. You're not going to say they were 13 and 15 when they're 2 and 4. I can appreciate contacting surveillance as another set of eyes, but why in the hell didn't somebody from the casino go out to the car?
They did. When security contacted surveillance, they were at the vehicle at 11:40.
Okay, but still 23.
23 minutes had passed, but I don't know the time period when the patron contacted security. I don't know that time gap.
Okay. I guess my concern is, and for the last 4 years, are idiots like Michael Harper leaving kids in cars. In this particular case, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I have been crystal clear that I wish we could do more to people like Michael Harper. Shame on the local police department for not doing more. I would, Mr. Chairman, and I think there may be another board member or somebody else that has possibly a question, but I would, and I'll do it however necessary. I think the Office of Enforcement Counsel, hopefully you're looking into the process here. I just find there to be a lot of gaps here.
Okay.
I just don't know how a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old at least stay in the car for 20 some minutes before the casino gets there. How is this guy on the floor for 30 some minutes before we grab him? There seems to be a whole host of gaps for me. And I'm not accusing anybody, but I think the Office of Enforcement Counsel needs to at least take the next step to see if all the casinos process and protocols were in place, because just at 10,000 feet from me, it seems like there were gaps.
Yeah, I would agree with Commissioner Logan completely on this. I'd like to ask a couple of questions, and maybe somebody else does, because you're talking about gaps, Sean, and Dustin, you're answering based upon what you know, okay?
Right.
And we're not asking you to make stuff up. The fact that they were at the car when surveillance was contacted doesn't tell me when they got to the car, okay? You said they were there at the car when they contacted surveillance. I'd like to know how much time went by, which I think is exactly what Sean's asking. How much time between when the patron discovered this and when it was told to somebody at the casino? We don't know that. And secondly, from the moment that any casino official had it, how long did it take them to get out to the car? Because I would find if the casino was notified and took over 20 minutes to get out there to take a look at the safety of a 2 and a 4-year-old, this is a grievous problem that something needs to be looked at. And I understand you can look into it. I'm going to need to have some help on how we're going to find out what you found out. We're going to have a motion here. We're going to vote on the motion and deal with Mr. Harper. But the point that Commissioner Logan is raising, which he's raised before, is extremely valid. And it's not enough for us to just be reacting and saying, okay, we took care of Mr. Harper. If there are structural problems at this casino or any other casino, we have an obligation to do something about that. So those are the questions on my mind, Dustin. And we also have to figure out how you're going to be able to communicate that back to this board. Okay.
Yes.
And I think there may have been other questions here from other commissioners. Were there?
Mr. Chairman, I just had one question, which I completely agree and echo the concerns that my fellow Commissioner Logan expressed and yourself, Mr. Chairman. But I don't understand, even if the security folks got to the car at 23 minutes, why didn't somebody retrieve the father from the casino? Why did it take another 10, 20 minutes, whatever it was, before security or somebody in the casino actually escorted the father back to these kids? So that's, I don't know if that's part of their process that they just call surveillance or whatever, but it needs to be changed. Somebody should have grabbed that person and taken them back out, which I know security has the right to do, to escort somebody out of the casino.
Yeah, I know at 11:40 when they contacted surveillance, they started a surveillance review, and that's when they tried to locate Mr. Harper. And I believe that took around 10 minutes for them to locate Mr. Harper in the casino, and then he was taken out to the vehicle.
Okay, well, Dustin, we have to come up with, before we get to the motion, we have to come up with some way for you to conduct some review and bring us up to date on exact, because there's obviously some missing facts here, which is causing concerns from at least 3 commissioners. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not all 7 of us.
Okay.
So let's figure out a way to do that. Okay. Any
Mr.
other
Chairman.
comment? Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Dustin, I think I understand. So Mr. Harper was never charged.
That's correct.
And he left the casino before the police got there.
That's correct. Well, the police were contacted at the same time that when surveillance was contacted, they made their mandatory notifications to Bureau of Casino Compliance, on-site Pennsylvania State Police, and Philadelphia Police Department.
So how did he leave? I understand, again, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I understand Mr. Harper left with the 2-year-old and the 4-year-old. I was told before the police arrived. How is that possible if we have PSP on site?
That's a question. I don't know. There's no record that Pennsylvania State Police responded to the scene, to the parking lot.
Are you saying that for fact, or are you just?
Yeah, I'm saying
a matter of record. So
as a matter of record, there's no indication that Pennsylvania State Police responded to the scene. I don't know that.
We have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old left alone in a car, at least for, again, there's gaps, at least for 13 minutes. And the PSP doesn't believe it's prudent, necessary to go to the garage?
I can't speak for them.
What do they do then? And this is a person who when I was in the state Senate, chaired the Law and Justice Committee, which had oversight for the state police, and because I know somebody will tweet something or somebody will take my comments out of context. I have complete respect and admiration for the PSP. But nobody can tell me that a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old should be in a car without the PSP going there. And then Michael Harper walks away and doesn't get charged because local police don't come. The whole thing, Dustin, respectfully, the whole thing is wrong. And the whole thing that the Office of Enforcement Counsel doesn't have, and I'm only speaking for myself, didn't have the same concerns and questions that I have is concerning.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mark.
Commissioner Mustia. Does it make sense that we get all these answers, use it as kind of a pilot case to see, if the balls were dropped, and then see if there are specific consistent programs at all the casinos on how they
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And
that's why I want that.
If there
Yes.
aren't,
That's exactly why I want to see these gaps filled in, so we're not chasing ghosts. We know exactly what happened and what didn't happen. And at that point, I think this matter, I'm guessing, will go to, it's something that Kevin will have to deal with to see what kind of changes or, well, I guess OEC will do whatever they do. We can't tell them what to do in terms of actions or considering investigations of individual casinos. That's, you guys are on the other side of the Chinese wall. But certainly, Kevin, if there is a structural problem here, then it's something we need to address with all the casinos instead of waiting for the next 2-year-old or 4-year-old to be left in a car. So thank you, Mark. That's very helpful.
Well, and we don't know if PSP was on site. We don't know if perhaps they were dealing with another individual in the casino at the same time.
Sure.
So I guess we have to get all those answers first.
Yes, and that's what needs to be done, Dustin. And whatever you guys are going to do on the other side of the Chinese wall, we need some information to make good policy decisions here. Okay?
Okay, we'll take a look at this matter further.
Any other comment? Yes.
Another gap that I would like to see filled in that I didn't see in the record was the weather that day. I'd see it was September, but was it hot? Was it cold? Just so we all have the same information.
Well, I can answer that question. It was actually very hot that day. It was a temperature of 93 degrees.
Okay. All right. I think we've gone as far as we can at the moment. Is there a motion here?
Yes. Commissioner Reitzel moves that the board approve the addition of Michael Harper to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Mustio seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Okay, the next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a petition to place Dennis Willis on the board's excluded persons list. Mr. Willis past posted a bet while playing roulette at Wind Creek Bethlehem Casino, winning an illegal gain of $175. Mr. Willis was criminally charged for his actions. He was also evicted from Wind Creek. Therefore, the Office of Enforcement Counsel now requested the board add Dennis Willis to the excluded persons list.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Mustio moves that the board approve the addition of Dennis Willis to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The next two matters on the board's agenda arise from the same fact pattern. With the board's permission, I'll read one set of facts and then ask that each individual be placed on the exclusion list. Ali Jalil Abdul Hamid and Christina Odom participated in the theft of a jacket containing a wallet, identification, credit cards, and a medical marijuana card from the gaming floor at the Meadows, whereby Ms. Odom picked up the jacket of another patron from the back of a chair at a blackjack table. After taking the jacket, Ms. Odom and Mr. Abdul Hamid left the Meadows. Subsequently, Ms. Odom and Mr. Abdul Hamid went to a nearby convenience store where they both used the victim's credit card to make several purchases. Both Mr. Abdul Hamid and Ms. Odom were criminally charged for their actions. This time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel now requested the board add Ali Jalil Abdul Hamid to the excluded persons list.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Logan moves that the board approve the addition of Ali Jalil Abdul Hamid to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Canola seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel now requests that the board add Christina Odom to the excluded persons list.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Canola move that the board approve the addition of Christina Odom to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Smiler seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The next two matters on the agenda arise from the same fact pattern. With the board's permission, I'll read one set of facts and then ask that each individual be placed on the exclusion list. A patron reported to Parks Casino Security that he was approached by three individuals in the parking lot who attempted to rob him at gunpoint. The robbers fled the scene in a vehicle after seeing Park Security in the vicinity. Later, the three suspects were located and arrested in Philadelphia. Two of the robbers were successfully identified as Samir Robinson and Tali Wright. Both Samir Robinson and Tali Wright were criminally charged with criminal attempt and conspiracy to commit robbery and theft by unlawful taking by Bensalem Township Police. The charges for each remain pending. The matter is now before the board to consider the placement of Samir Robinson on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Smiler moves that the board approve the addition of Samir Robinson to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Santoni seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The matter is now before the board to consider the placement of Tali Wright on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Santoni moves that the board approve the addition of Tali Wright to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Wright will second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The final 10 matters on the agenda arise from the same fact pattern. With the board's permission, I'll read one set of facts and then ask that each individual be placed on the exclusion list. Through news outlets, the Bureau of Casino Compliance learned that a group of individuals participated in a check cashing scheme that affected numerous casinos on the East Coast. 3 of those casinos were in Pennsylvania and included Rivers Pittsburgh, Rivers Philadelphia, and Presque Isle Downs. Further investigation by the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement revealed that the suspects had obtained birth certificates and social security numbers of other individuals and used that information to obtain driver's licenses, open checking accounts, and obtain Players Club cards in other individuals' names. The suspects would then go to casinos and withdraw money through electronic cash services and close the associated checking accounts before the fraudulent activity was detected and the money could be recovered. The suspects successfully conspired to cash fraudulent checks at casinos along the East Coast from May of 2014 to February of 2017. The scope of the investigation included Florida, Maryland, Louisiana, Michigan, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. Losses from the scheme totaled over $555 million. Of that amount, approximately $80,756 was identified as losses which occurred within Pennsylvania casinos. All suspects were indicted in the Western District of Pennsylvania, United States District Court, on charges related to bank fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft regarding the check cashing scheme. 7 of the individuals have entered a plea of guilty to the charges. The dockets for Isaac Rivera, Khadijah Starks, and Sarah Wiley are under seal, and the last known docket status indicated the charges are still pending for those individuals. The matters are now before the board to consider the placement of Christina Arnold, James Brown, Eddie Delshon Cruz, Isaac Rivera, Damari Rodriguez, Khadijah Starks, Leslie M. Starks, Kareem Wiley, Carl Wiley, and Sarah Wiley to the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I do have just one question. John,
Please.
Dustin, I think you started the synopsis here by you saw this in news reports?
Yes, that's how the Bureau of Casino Compliance became aware of it, and that's how we became aware of it.
Is that customary? We don't get some sort of notification?
Sometimes we receive, information from all sources.
But in this particular case, it was via newspaper.
It's from news reports, that's correct.
Seems willy-nilly to me, but okay.
Well, none of these people were employees of a casino. These were people, semi-patrons, thieves, right?
That's correct.
I understand. Any other questions at the moment? What I would comment is, I can tell you this, Sean, when I was the U.S. attorney, some of our best white collar cases, we got our first lead from the newspaper. Sometimes that's the way it starts. Maybe
Okay, but I guess my concern is these 10 individuals weren't writing a newspaper article. It must have been some agency that talked about it. I guess
probably the U.S.
It's not like we got the lead from a newspaper article because James Brown participated in an article. There must have been some federal state agency. I would just think that while they were investigating this, that they would have notified our enforcement division. We would have been on the lookout and we could have protected the state's interest. But again, as a non-lawyer enforcement person, I'll stay in my lane. It just doesn't, I mean, I sometimes I just use a common sense test after 30 plus years, and this just doesn't meet it either.
Yeah, common sense is always a good place to start. I'm just curious. I think one of the points that you're raising is.
How about if we weren't reading the newspaper that day?
That's right. Then we wouldn't. The truth of the matter is, I assume all these fellows and guys and gals are not going to be in any casino for quite a while, anyway. But I would imagine that if in the course of this investigation, you would have thought there would have been some interviews with investigatory people inside the various casinos where they were conducting these activities. And I think then you would think it might have come to our attention.
Yeah.
But sometimes the other piece of that is if there's doing a criminal investigation, sometimes whether it's the FBI or whoever it is, they would say, we really don't want you talking about this until we've picked these people up. So there are a lot of variables,
Gotcha.
again, that we can't possibly know. But I don't, we'll do what we'll do here, but I suspect none of these folks are going to be free to go into any casino for a while, at any rate. Any other questions or comments on this matter? Maybe for my other former prosecutor. Denise, do you have something you want to add?
No, I think you summarized it pretty well. I mean, there's no guarantee there's going to be cooperation between the various law enforcement agencies, and timing is everything. So there probably were good reasons why we weren't notified, and we probably would have ultimately been notified. But when that would have happened is a question. It sounds like these crimes were already committed before any of these arrests were being made. So
I'm going to guess, Dustin, that whatever we learned was probably a press release from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Pittsburgh announcing the charges, because there tends to be.
We did receive extensive cooperation from them after we began our investigation into this matter.
But by that time, they'd already indicted everybody, and they already picked them up, which is exactly what I would have expected, because particularly when it's a large conspiracy in many states, you want to make sure you have all the kittens in the cage before you let anything be known publicly. But okay, they've been cooperative to you in the course of what you were trying to do.
That's correct.
Okay.
Good
Any
to
other questions or comments? We've had quite an interesting day today. May I have a motion?
Mr. Reitzel moves that the board approve the addition of the 10 individuals identified by the Office of Enforcement Counsel to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Mustio seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted. Well, that wraps up today's meeting. I'd point out that Dante, this was not done this way on purpose, but we made your last day on the board probably interesting one. At any rate, our next public meeting is going to be held on Wednesday, March 17th at 10 a.m. Given the continued uncertainty surrounding COVID, I advise all interested parties to monitor the board's website for the latest information as to how that meeting will be conducted. That being said, best of luck to you, Dante. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Mustio moves adjournment.
Commissioner Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks one and all for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
bye, Dante.
Bye, Dante.
See you, Dante. Good luck.